Now, you may be wondering about this t-shirt. And this t-shirt, believe it or not, has inspired 6 novels. What? And now the one thing I changed look to scene. If I scene quiet, just because I think that flows better and that works better as a book title. But let me sort of give you a little bit of background on this. So this is now the 4th book in the series. Oh, and you were hearing this here first as well. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've been racking my brain to come up with a name for the series. And this reviewer who was reviewing my book said, Dave, you really need to come up with a name for your series. You really need to come up with a name for your series. So I pondered a bunch of possibilities, and what I came up with is Gay Tales for the New Millennium. It's a lot of words, but I think it kind of suits it pretty well. So this is book 4 of Gay Tales for the New Millennium. This was originally supposed to be my first book. And I got part of the way through it, and then at some point the lead character, whose name is Aaron, meets this really interesting and tall, handsome, and hunky guy named Ryan. And as I was developing Ryan's character, Ryan has had a very interesting life with lots of challenges and lots of ups and downs and some real highs as well. But I thought, Ryan deserves his own book. And that turned into 3 books, the first 3 books of this series here. And so now we're finally at the point where Aaron, who you meet in this book, meets Ryan part of the way through it, and the storylines collide or intersect, however you want to look at it. But let me get back to this shirt, and people often ask me, Dave, how did you get started writing books? And I can tell what they're really asking is, Dave, why did you get started writing books? But at any rate, the story goes like this. So many of you know I'm also a jazz musician, and I play in several jazz bands. And I play in a band at Scottsdale Community College that rehearses from 3 to 5 on Monday, and I play in Desert City Jazz, which is our local LGBT and Friends jazz ensemble, and that rehearses in downtown Phoenix from 7 to 9. And with those 2 hours in between, I could fight the freeway traffic going south on 101, have about 20 or 30 minutes at home, get back in the car, fight the freeway traffic back into Phoenix, or I could just find a restaurant to go hang out at between the 2 points for about, an hour and a half or so, and so that's what I do. And I bring my laptop and I catch up on email and Facebook, and maybe I do some writing and all that, but one particular week, I happened to be at the Rubio's at 44th Street and Indian School. And that's actually kind of on my short list of places that I eat dinner Monday nights. And so I'm sitting there at this table, and it's my favorite table. It's down along the edge, closest to the soda fountain, so I can jump up and get several refills, thereby ensuring that I'm going to spend the entire Desert City Jazz rehearsal desperate to pee. But at any rate, so I was sitting there, and this one particular week, some guy came in and ordered us dinner and sat at a table, right over there. And every so often I kind of look at him, and I didn't know what it was about this particular individual that appealed to me. Okay, actually, yes, I do. He was young and cute. There's that. But at any rate, every so often I would look over at him, and I wonder who he is. I wonder where he was before he came into Rubio's for dinner. And I wonder where he's going to go as soon as he leaves. What's he do for a living? Is he originally from Phoenix, or is he originally from someplace else, like most of us are? Is he gay or straight? I mean, what's he do for a living? I mean, any of those things. And so before my meal was over, I made up a story for him. And how sometimes somebody will say to somebody else, get a life. Well, I gave him a life, whether he wanted one or not, And so that young man became Aaron Michael Bradbury, and he was originally from Ohio. No coincidence there. he worked at he was a pharmacist, and he worked at the Walgreens, there on the same corner where the Rubio's was. And he originally played trombone and was in the Ohio State University marching band. Again, yes. For those of you who don't know, Tom and I were in the OSU marching band together only a few years ago. So at any rate, this book opens, and Aaron has come into this restaurant to eat, and I relocated the restaurant, gave it a different name, but still, he comes in to eat, and he eats at this place fairly often, and he has a favorite seat, and lo and behold, it's the one I'm sitting in. And so it's like, of all the nerve, So we sit someplace else, and the character who was sitting at that place, with his laptop open in front of him and all that, is wearing this t-shirt. And as he goes to the soda fountain to get his drink, he can see it from about here on up, because the guy's sitting at the table and he's got his laptop in front of him. And he said, interesting, trombone. I said, yeah, I remember playing my trombone. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and all that. So at any rate, as he's getting ready to leave, the two of them happen to get up and go to the soda fountain at the same time. And so Aaron says to the other guy, whose name in the book is Rob, hey, nice t-shirt. Oh, do you play trombone? Well, I used to back in high school and college. Are you a professional trombonist? No, but I play in this band called, and it's not really Desert Overture, it's Desert Pride Symphonic Band in the book. It bears no resemblance whatsoever to Desert Overture in real life. And the conversation starts up, and Rob invites Aaron to their next concert. So he goes to the concert, and he sits there the entire time, and memories wash over. He remembers times when his bands played that song. He remembers what the first trombone part was to that song, and just thought about all his friends he had in band and all that stuff. So he meets up with Rob in the lobby afterwards, and this is where I'd like to pick up reading a small excerpt of the book. After the concert, Aaron noticed a small art gallery at the other end of the lobby. He decided to check it out. 10 minutes later, he had seen all there was to see, so he headed back across the lobby to the door. During the time he was in the gallery, band members had emerged from backstage and were mingling with the audience. Before he made it to the door, Rob spotted him. He excused himself from his friends and hurried up to Aaron. Aaron, I'm glad you came. How did you like it? The band sounded great. I really enjoyed it. It brought back a lot of memories from my bands in high school and college. Thanks. A lot of people in our band stopped playing when they left school. They really enjoyed playing again. I quit playing when I started pharmacy school. It took up so much time, I didn't have time for anything beside classes and studying. And Rob says, yeah, I'll bet. Anyway, now that you're working, you probably have some spare time. You should start playing again. I don't know. It's been 5 years. And he thought to himself, and I don't think I'd join a gay band anyway. I wonder if there are any other bands out there. Because at this point, Aaron is still ostensibly straight, not to let a little spoiler out. Rob laughed. He said, oh, we have people who haven't played in 20 or 30 years. I think the longest is 38 years. You'd be surprised how quickly it comes back. I didn't play for 13 years, and I got back to my previous level in about 2 months. Aaron says, well, that's good to know. Anyway, my trombone is still at my parents' house in Ohio. That's assuming they haven't gotten rid of it by now. And Rob says, well, if you're interested, you can borrow my old trombone. It plays okay. I use it for parades and stuff like that, so I don't have to be too concerned about it getting dinged or something. Aaron thought, really? You'd loan one of your instruments to somebody you barely know? Rob could tell Aaron was thinking about it. Just come to a rehearsal or two and check it out. No commitment. We rehearse on Thursday evenings. We're taking this Thursday off, but we'll be back the following week. The first rehearsal is always a sight reading rehearsal, and we welcome new people who want to come and try it out. If it doesn't work for you, you just give me my trombone back. No harm, no foul. So would I have to audition or anything? Nope, it's a non-audition band. We try to be as welcoming and inclusive as possible for people at every skill level. Rob paused and then he added, gay or straight. Aaron said, really? You guys sounded too good to be a non-audition band. So the conversation had gone on this long, so it was obvious that Aaron was interested. Rob said, so would you like to borrow my trombone and give it a try? Aaron tried to think of a polite excuse, but he couldn't come up with one. The lame objections he had put up so far had been addressed. There was no way he could say, I really don't want to play with a bunch of gay people without sounding like a terrible human being. So, fast forward a little bit to his first rehearsal. So he walks in, Rob sees him, waves him over. Welcome, glad you made it. Thanks, I've been practicing all week. I don't think I'll sound too bad. I don't know if I'll be able to play for 2 hours though. Don't worry, it's not like we play constantly. Just do what you can. What part did you play when you were in school? Aaron replies first, but since I'm starting again, it's fine if they put me on second or third. Whatever. No, play first. Here, why don't you sit there on the other side of Stephen? He pointed to the third chair in the row, which was empty. We'll decide where you sit later. Aaron scooted past the 30-ish guy seated next to Rob and sat down. He opened his trombone case and began assembling Rob's trombone. The guy seated next to him said, Hi, I'm Stephen. He extended his hand for Aaron to shake. Hi, I'm Aaron. Welcome. Thanks. I haven't played for like 5 years, so I'll probably suck. He immediately regretted that choice of words. Stephen seemed not to notice. No problem. I hadn't played for 6 years when I joined. You'll be surprised how quickly it comes back. Stephen seemed nice enough. Aaron turned to the guy to his left. Hi, I'm Aaron. The other guy said Jeremy, and they shook hands. Jeremy smiled at Aaron, and Aaron felt a little less nervous. The director stepped onto his podium, and the cacophony of chatter and random horn blowing subsided. Hello, and welcome back. Nice to see a few new faces. I'd like to ask each of the new people to stand up and tell us your name, how long it's been since you played your instrument, and something interesting about yourself. It doesn't have to be anything too personal. So he scanned the flutes in the first row and said, why don't we start with you? A middle-aged guy stood up and said, my name is Paul. I'm just getting back into flute playing after 15 years. As for something interesting about myself, well, besides working as a technical trainer, I'm a medium. Yes, so as a disclaimer I made to the actual Desert Overture members here, there's nobody in this fictitious band that's really modeled after an actual person in Desert Overture, except that one. So, and he gave me permission, so yay. So he says, I'm a medium. Jeremy turned to Aaron, Stephen, and Rob and whispered, he's a medium? I saw him in the men's room before rehearsal. He's definitely a large. Stephen and Rob snickered. Aaron smiled and made a mental note to avoid using the restroom here. Several more people stood and introduced themselves. In the sax section, a new guy introduced himself as Stephen. The Stephen to Aaron's right muttered, great, another Stephen. Finally, it was Aaron's turn. He stood up and said, hi, I'm Aaron. I'm from Ohio. In fact, I was in the Ohio State Marching Band. I've been out here, living here for almost 2 years. I haven't played trombone for 5 years until about a week ago. Something interesting about me? I don't know. I'm straight. He immediately wished he hadn't said that. He added, and I'm a pharmacist. He quickly sat down. The room felt awkward, or maybe it was only him. The director moved on by asking a new person in the percussion section to go next. In the French horn section, yet another Stephen, and there will be a joke about this later on. There you go. Another Stephen turned to the guy next to him, Kent, and whispered, he's straight, all right. straight to bed. Kent whispered back, if that's the guy Rob told me about, he really is straight. At least that's what he says. Stephen smirked dismissively. $20 says that one wants his weenie washed. Kent shook his hand. You're on. So, again, I'm not going to let too many spoilers out. Obviously, it's not very long until, Aaron makes a lot of friends of people in the band and realizes he feels really comfortable there and finally confronts something he's been denying for a long time. And so that is part of the storyline in the book. If any of you know anybody who came out a little later in life, and Aaron is 28, that's somewhat later in life, on gay terms, that's late to be coming out. And if any of you know people who have come out later in life, when they do, they come out with a vengeance. They need to make up time. And Aaron kind of falls into that routine too. So, what questions would you like to ask?
When does Ryan come in?
He comes in about maybe 40% of the way into the book. And Ryan, in his high school and college, used to play trumpet and hasn't played since he got out of school. And so, of course, Aaron does the same recruitment routine on him. And I have to say this, how the right wing, the fundamentalists always say, oh, gay people recruit. And we say, no, we don't, no, we don't, no, we don't. Unless we're in a gay band, we recruit. We do. If anybody says, oh, I used to play clarinet in high school, we bounce. With a routine just like what you said, and we get them to drag their instruments out of the closet and play again.
I'm just on this, I'm in the middle of the second book, so
yes.
this may be your third book. Does Ryan's little brother ever come back into the story?
Yes, he does.
And you don't have to ruin it for me. But
well, let me say this as a more blanket statement. For those of you who may not be familiar with my first and second book yet, Ryan, who's actually originally Brian and he changes his name for a reason, but has to leave home quickly because his very right-wing father finds out he's gay and is trying to send him to a gay conversion therapy camp. So he has to run away from home. And that also means he runs away from his little brother, Brandon, whom he's really close with, and his friends in high school, and his boyfriend, Chris, and all these other things. In my next book, book 5, various people from Kansas make their way back into Ryan's life in one way or another. Sometimes in very good ways, sometimes in not so welcome ways, and sometimes just ways. But one of the main themes of the next book is him reckoning with people from his past as they make their way back into his life. And that's interesting in some ways.
yeah. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Question. Have you gotten any communications from people saying, I really like the band theme in this? I mean, have you had people say, this really resonated with me, I used to play an instrument, this is something, or is that something that hasn't come up in communication?
Not the band thing specifically. People have told me that some of the coming out experiences of people in the books were just like their coming out experiences. So they relate that way, but I haven't had that particular comment about being able to relate to the band experience. This book actually has more band in it than any of the previous books, and so I may get to that feedback after this book.
I'll email you.
Okay, yeah. Yes?
A little more general question, if I'm a newbie to your books, but what brought about the switch from financially focused books to novels?
No, that's a good question. So most of you know that it's been over 10 years ago now, I started a website called retirefabulously.com. And I started writing blog posts, articles for that. And the early ones were pretty amateurish, and I retired them because they weren't fabulous. And, but after a while, I got better and better at writing, and I could write better sentences and construct paragraphs better and all that. And I discovered that I really enjoyed writing. Well, after about 8 years of that, I had kind of mined that topic all I could. And I either had the choice of, okay, go back and cover stuff again, take some old article and rewrite it and dress it up and pass that off as new material. But after 8 years, I kind of thought I had covered all the ground, and I was ready to move on to something else.
And what was your background to write that originally? Investment thing.
Okay.
Retirement.
Yeah, and well, for one thing I'll say though, the retirement books are about everything except investments. Because there's already tons of information out there about money and investments and all that, but I found there was very little information about how do you actually have an enjoyable life after you retire? What do you do with all this free time? And so I like to say these are retirement lifestyle books. They're about how you're going to live your life after you retire. And I guess I'm not any particular expert at that, except my parents, maybe without even thinking about it, really did a very good job with their retirement in terms of how they spend it and things they did and that kind of thing. And I knew since the first day I worked that my goal would be to retire as soon as I could and then get on with life. So that's always been an interest of mine. And otherwise, throughout the course of those 8 years of writing blog posts and 3 books and all that, I just did a heck of a lot of research. I read all kinds of other stories and books and articles, and I really kind of made myself become an expert at that. So I wouldn't even say expert, but
You are.
oh well, all right, thank you. I'll let other people say that. Yeah, Paul. Paul, and then Nate. First.
Okay. Since you said that Ryan doesn't come into this until like 40% into the book, and hearing the whole development of the whole series, then would you say that this book is more focused around Aaron than this new character, and Ryan it's lesser focused, I guess?
That's certainly true for the first half of the book. By the end of the book, Ryan and Aaron are co-stars in terms of like point of view and so forth. But yeah, I mean, it definitely started off being a focus on Aaron.
Okay.
And Ryan, and those of you who've read the first 3 books will know exactly what I'm talking about. I mentioned he had a very interesting, very colorful past. There's some of those things he really doesn't like to talk about. He wants to leave them in the past and focus on today and focus on the future, and let's not dredge all that old crap up again. And of course, Aaron wants to know all about him. And so there's a basic conflict right there. Like, tell me all about your past. No, I don't want to talk about my past. And so that becomes kind of a conflict for them. Yeah.
Hey, I was also just thinking, so since you said, I think that this book is really kind of the first book, this is the Star Wars 4, I guess.
That's a really good analogy.
Yes, and then you decided to write 3 prequels to it before you published this one. So
Right.
Did writing those other books change the story or the style or any other elements? Did you rethink this book because of the prequels in a way?
Yeah, and the question, I need to remember to answer, to repeat questions to make sure everybody hears them. Did book 4, because I originally had plotted it out pretty extensively, did that change as I wrote the first 3 books? Yes. The overall premise stayed the same, but a lot of the specifics changed. And one in particular is I started writing this book in first person. So, I was Aaron. As you were reading, it was from Aaron's point of view, first person. And there's pros and cons of writing in first person versus writing in third person. The pro for first person is the audience connects with the character even better. The con is you can't really have anything else go on in the book that Aaron isn't experiencing because it's him first person telling the book. So I did have to go back and rewrite everything I'd written to that point in third person instead of first person. And like months later, I'd still come up with one pronoun, where I'd say I instead of, and have to change it to him, but I finally caught all those, I think. And there were some other specifics too that changed along the way. So the overall plan was the same, but lots of stuff changed.
Somebody asked, maybe asked this, but will we see Chris again?
Yeah, somebody asked me beforehand if we will see Chris again.
Okay.
And Chris is Ryan's high school boyfriend, and they were madly in love, and they were going to go to college together and spend their life together. Of course, they had to leave them behind. And as I mentioned in the next book, many people from his past come back into his life. And I will say that Chris is one of them. I won't say any more about that to not give away spoilers, because I know what everybody wants to know. Will they get back together again? Maybe. We'll see.
How far along is book 5?
Okay, yeah. My last two books, and I'm still trying, sometimes titles are really hard. Right now, it's titled Book 5, and the next one's Book 6. But I have the first draft completely written of Book 5. And what I normally do is when I finish the first draft, I set the book aside for a while, and I focus on one of my other books, and then come back later, and then start multiple rounds of editing and polishing, and usually sending it off to beta readers and things like that. So that's where 5 is. The first draft's totally done. I've been letting it sit for a few months. Now I'm going to get it back out and start doing the editing and all that. The next book, I'm about 80% done with first draft. So that's the one I'm still actually writing and filling in gaps here and there so it hopefully flows.
So after this series is complete, what's next?
I don't know. Seriously, I don't. Occasionally I have an idea for a book. Certainly nothing as grand, or not anything, yeah, I'm a writer. Anything as grand as this series, but I really don't know. I may take a little bit of time off. I might write a couple short stories. One other thing, just to let you all know, because many of you are friends. Jeff and I had a deal, which he grows a little more regretful that he made this deal all the time. But yeah, I know. So we have dogs, and Jeff I love dogs. I love our dogs. They've been beautiful little creatures. I don't absolutely have to have dogs in my life. He absolutely has to have dogs in his life. And one of the things that I really look forward to in retirement was doing a lot of traveling. And so we made a deal that when our current dog goes to his great reward and crosses the Rainbow Bridge, I get 2 years with no dogs to try and cram as much travel as I can into those 2 years. So the way it's looking, I will have book 6 finished and ready to publish and everything. I hope Maynard lives a long, long time yet to go, but he is an older dog now. So, I'll probably finish this by the time this time comes, but I may not start writing again until after we get back from all of our travel. And who knows, all that traveling means 5 or 6 days. Pardon?
Where are you going to travel?
Everywhere. No, not quite. But the big thing is, normally when you go on vacations, you maybe spend a week. And even then, you go from place to place within that week. A lot of the trips we've taken have been cruise ships, and you get 1 day in a port. And so that's a nice little sampler of places. But now I want to go back and to the place I really liked and spend a week there and see the stuff that's not necessarily right in the little tourist zone and find out a little bit more about how people really live there. Experience the place a little more. And so, for example, I'd really like to go back to Australia and New Zealand. I've only seen tiny little bits of those countries, but I'd like to go spend like a week in Sydney and a week in Melbourne and a week in Adelaide and stuff like that. So, we'd be gone 5 or 6 weeks or even 2 months and then fly back. So that's sort of the type of travel that I'm envisioning, and I'm still trying to sell him on. All right, well, if there's, oh, yes. Paul.
One last question.
Yes.
So since you said you started this one first, and then you said Ryan needed his own books or whatever, so you got the 3 beforehand, and you said this is a series of 6, did you already have an end in mind? This is like a 2-part question. Did you already have an end in mind for why there would be 2 more books past this one? And is book 6 total closure, or is there something that could provide you opportunity to restart?
It is probably going to be total closure.
Oh,
Now, but there's, you always leave a little door open in case, But one thing about these books is a lot of times they haven't really had what you might call happy endings. Or maybe they're happy enough. Okay, stop.
The other half.
we've read the books.
No,
Yeah.
no wonder they're not selling more. No wonder they're not selling. But anyway, but a lot of times you knew that, okay, this chapter ends here, but the characters' lives are going to go on and there's more stuff that's going to happen. Book 6 is kind of the book that ties up all the loose ends and resolves conflicts, and book 6 is going to be like the biggest tie up all the loose ends, wrap up, happy endings, come on, and put a nice bow on it and stuff like that. Now, there will be 1 or 2 things that leave you wondering, I wonder how things are going to turn out for that character. But I don't know that I'm going to continue the series for that. Maybe writing a separate book about that character. But I am pretty much trying to wrap up all the plot lines by the end of book 6.
Sounds like a title for book 6, Happy Endings.
I've thought about that. I mean, but again, you don't want that to be misinterpreted. You don't build up the wrong expectations from your
There's some more
readers.
books that way.
But that's true. That's true.
When do you plan on book 6 being published?
Right now, given how far along I am in the writing of that and book 5, I will probably have book 5 out in approximately 4 months, 4 to 5, and book 6, 4 to 5 months after that. So let's say March, July, or August.
2024.
Yes, 2024. And, I know that's fast, but, some people just like crank books out every month or so, and some people take 2 years. I guess I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but. Dave?
You said you modeled one of the characters around Jeff.
Yes.
Is there any character that's modeled around you?
Not specifically, but, as you saw in the opening, Aaron had certain things in common with me. He was from Ohio, he plays trombone, he was in the OSU marching band, that sort of thing. I'm not a pharmacist. I don't have all the hang-ups he has. Anyway, I have others. But, and in some ways, Rob, the character he meets in the restaurant, has things in common with me. And even Ryan and Ted have a few things in common with me. So I think it's more that certain aspects of my interests or my personalities come through in those characters, but it's not autobiographical. There's none of the characters that are like me with a different name.
Okay.
Right. Well, again, thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Again, get on my mailing list and get cruise versions. And if you haven't bought the book yet, and you would like, and if you would like to, obviously there's no pressure. You can get up and leave if you want. But seriously, it's all right.
Sure, go.
Yeah. No. But no, I'll be happy to sit here and sign books and have more conversation with you on that. Definitely eat and drink more things so we don't have to stay from home. And thank you all so very much.